You've probably heard the phrase, we become what we think about. But have you ever wondered what that actually means for your day-to-day life? Imagine your mind as a garden. Whatever you plant there, whether weeds of fear or seeds of faith, will bloom. The shocking part is most people let random thoughts control the harvest of their life. In this video, we'll explore how great teachers like Neville Goddard, James Allen, and Earl Nightingale all arrived at the same truth, and how you can use it to design the reality you actually want. The illusion of external search. Why do so many of us spend years chasing external success only to find it feels empty when we finally grasp it? A promotion, a house, a relationship, more followers, these can all be achieved, yet after the first wave of excitement fades, there is often a sense that something is still missing. This is because the search was aimed outward, but the source of fulfillment has always been inward. That is the illusion many of us live under, the belief that abundance is delivered by the world instead of cultivated in the mind. When we believe happiness lives in having more, the chase never ends. The moment you meet one goal, another rises, and then another, each promising greater sense of self, but giving less than expected. Approval, image, possessions, each is a moving target. The harder you chase them, the further away real contentment feels. The world can hand you status, money, and recognition, but it cannot hand you peace until your own thought life changes. People often imagine wealth or fame as the key to rest, yet countless examples show the opposite. Someone can reach material security, yet remain restless because their inner dialogue is filled with old doubts and fears. An empty thought life will hollow out even the fullest bank account. Without examining what is planted in the mind, success feels strangely thin. It lacks substance because the soil it was built on was never tended. There is an old story called Acres of Diamonds. A farmer, hearing tales of diamond mines in far-off lands, sells his property and leaves to find one of his own. He spends his energy searching, wandering, and never discovers the riches he dreamed of. Years later, the man who purchased his abandoned farm digs in the very fields he left behind and uncovers one of the largest diamond mines of the region. The tragedy is clear. He walked away from untold wealth while searching everywhere but his own ground. This parable mirrors the way we overlook the place of our true riches, the landscape of our own thoughts. We run outward to acquire symbols of success while ignoring the fact that every circumstance flows from the seeds planted within. Each thought is the soil and water of life. Neglect this invisible garden, and you may stand in the middle of plenty while still feeling poor. Abundance is not born from numbers, possessions, or praise. It rises from the habits of thought we establish day after day. If your attention is built on resentment, fear, or constant comparison, then the external results of life will only mirror that unrest. But if your attention is steady on faith, creativity, and gratitude, then abundance begins to feel natural well before anything outward changes. It grows from within and then shapes the outer field. Consider your mind as ground already filled with countless seeds. Some are weeds planted by old conditioning. Some are flowers waiting for care. Each choice of thought is like watering one plant while leaving another dry. Even if you do not act, something still grows. Neglect automatically nourishes weeds. Awareness nurtures blossoms. The question is not whether your garden will yield a harvest, but whether that harvest will enrich you. What changes everything is recognizing that the hose in your hand, the power to water, is your own focus. When you place it on worthy, empowering thoughts, you enrich the soil. When you leave it on fear, you strengthen chains. External search becomes irrelevant once you see that the essence of life is contained in the inner field. The diamonds you sought abroad may already be waiting just underfoot. So ask yourself, what would happen if the chase for something out there stopped today? What if you faced the truth that what shapes your experience is already living within your awareness? That shift turns longing into ownership. The mind sets direction, and the outer world follows. And from this point on, the question is no longer whether you will harvest results, but which ones you will allow. The external chase fades because its promise was never real to begin with. The real treasure glimmers beneath the surface of thought, ready to be uncovered by those willing to look inward. Now, let's see how thought actually moves from invisible seeds to tangible experiences. The seed of thought. Every action you have ever taken began as a thought, often small, sometimes fleeting, yet powerful enough to set a chain of events in motion. Pause for a moment and consider that. You woke today because of a thought. You spoke certain words because of a thought. The way you see yourself, the way you believe others see you, and even the way you walk through the world, all of it grew out of the seeds carried in the garden of your mind. But the real question is not whether thoughts shape life. The question is, which thoughts are shaping yours right now? Neville Goddard taught that imagination is not mere fantasy. It is not daydreaming, not wishful thinking, and not simply an escape. Imagination is a blueprint of reality. It is the silent architect drawing shapes before the walls of experience rise. The pictures you dwell upon fill the mold of your future. What you accept in imagination, you eventually meet in circumstance. Most people dismiss a thought the way they dismiss a passing cloud. They forget that even soft clouds can gather force and change the weather when given enough time. And here lies the tension. Many live their days recycling the same old impressions, worries about tomorrow, judgments formed yesterday, anxious rehearsals of failure. These recycled thoughts play on repeat, like background music that never stops. If you listen closely, you will notice how much of your inner dialogue is patterned by doubts you never chose. Each unguarded repetition becomes a seed. With time, these seeds grow deeper roots, often crowding out the more empowering pictures waiting to be planted. Think of a garden left untended. No gardener would be surprised to see weeds spreading across the soil. They come uninvited but strong, and if left alone, they take possession. The mind works the same way. A neglected thought life fills itself with weeds, fears, angers, jealousies, endless self-questioning. Unless new intentional seeds of thought are planted, weeds are what will take over. The ground is not neutral. It always produces according to what it receives. That is why the subconscious mind is so central. It does not select or discriminate between what is noble and what is harmful. It accepts every impression planted, whether through imagination, repetition, or strong emotion. If the seeds are worry, the crop is trouble. If the seeds are trust, the crop is peace. The subconscious brings forth whatever it is given, the way a faithful soil yields whatever has been buried. Its nature is to produce, not to question. You already know the role of the five senses. They carry impressions from everything you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. These senses often replay what they once absorbed, memories, traumas, fleeting remarks from years ago, until the subconscious receives them as reality. But there is also another channel. Call it the sixth sense, or the higher faculty of mind. This faculty does not drag old memories into the present. Instead, it opens to inspiration, creative impulse, flashes of vision that carry a different quality. This is not noise recycled from history, but a quiet opening to what could become. Both streams flow into the subconscious. Which one you choose to value That is the practice. Repetition is what makes a single thought strong enough to build circumstance. A thought repeated day after day travels from the edge of imagination into the depth of the subconscious, where it is treated as fact. Once lodged there, it directs everything from your posture to your choice of words to the opportunities you notice in the world around you. The soil does not care how the seed entered, it only knows to bring it forth as sprouting life. So what happens when you stop leaving the garden unattended and begin selecting seeds on purpose? What happens when you choose an image of health, abundance, or peace and return to it often enough that the soil accepts it as reality? Then life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something growing from you. The weeds still appear at times, but you are no longer at their mercy, because you have seen that power rests in the seeds you select, not in the weeds that blow in on the wind. This is why guarding your thought life is more than a slogan. It becomes the central discipline. When a thought of fear intrudes, you can let it go instead of nurturing it. When a thought of faith emerges, you can give it attention, water it with imagination, and return to it in quiet moments. Each small decision of focus becomes an act of creation. The mind accepts the pattern, the subconscious holds it, and soon the outer world reflects what you have persistently affirmed. Imagination becomes the soil, shaping what finally appears under your feet. You already hold seeds in your hand, some from the past, some new and waiting. The harvest you live in tomorrow emerges from the thoughts you water today. So guard them, select them, and know them as the beginning of your reality. Now, let's examine why it is not the thought alone, but the steady repetition and conviction behind it that turns fragile pictures into lived truth. Before we continue, a brief invitation. If you're ready to turn these seeds into daily practice, join the 21-day Dream Life Challenge. You'll find it in the video description and the pinned comment. For 21 days, we'll plant one intentional thought, water it with simple exercises and micro-actions, and watch the garden change from within. If that speaks to you, I'd love to see you inside. Now, back to the lesson. The power of repetition and conviction. Why do some people achieve radical change, while others abandon the journey after only a few weeks? The difference is rarely about talent. It is not about access to resources or even about luck. The real difference rests in the way a thought is held. A thought that is touched once and then forgotten fades like chalk dust in the rain. A thought that is nurtured through steady return begins to sink roots, and in time, those roots hold the entire direction of a person's life. Earl Nightingale pointed to this power of repetition. Your mind does not change because of a single bright idea. It changes because the idea is introduced again and again, each time from a slightly different angle, until the mind accepts it as stable, enduring, and real. For some, this may be the repeated reading of a book. For others, it may be daily reflection or affirmation. And for many, it is a combination, layer upon layer of reinforcement until new thought becomes second nature. Think of how you learn a new language. The first exposure is confusing. The words feel foreign to your tongue and unclear to your ear. Yet with repetition, phrases become natural. Soon you do not translate in your head, you simply understand. The idea has passed from fragile novelty into unquestioned reality. Thought works the same way. A single seed of imagination feels weak, but under repeated exposure, it becomes the dominant tongue you speak within yourself. But here is where tension arises. A fragile thought sounds loud in the beginning because it excites. You hear a line, you feel inspired, you begin to imagine new outcomes. Yet if it is not repeated, conviction does not form. Inspiration without repetition dissolves. The soil forgets. That is why many people feel bursts of motivation, but soon return to old habits. The seed was not returned to, watered, and strengthened. Repetition is the hand that waters. Consider a person reading James Allen, then opening Neville Goddard, then later encountering another teacher saying the same thing in different words. Although the phrasing differs, the principle reappears. This repeated pattern is like exercising a muscle. Each exposure builds more strength, not because the idea is new, but because the mind rehearses it long enough to internalize. Conviction forms when the same truth is encountered through multiple channels and then claimed as personal reality. The brain itself does not respond strongly to scattered information. It does not record stray remarks or fleeting details for long, but it remembers what is impressed with emotion. It remembers what is repeated with focus. This is why you still hold songs, scriptures, or phrases from your early years. They have been planted through rhythm and repeated attention. Repetition fused with feeling burns the pattern into the subconscious, leaving no question about its reality. And here lies the turning point. Conviction is not the same as knowing a statement with your intellect. You can know an idea, yet not live by it. Conviction means you carry the idea as fact now, before any outer sign appears. You accept it as real in your imagination so clearly that you walk through life already identified with it. This is faith, not as blind belief, but as inner certainty impressed by steady rehearsal. When conviction is steady, action follows without strain. You do not need to push yourself with constant willpower. Ideas acted from belief flow like breath. The person who is convinced of health makes choices naturally aligned with health. The person who is convinced of abundance notices channels and makes moves without debate. Action becomes the byproduct of conviction, not the cause of it. Imagine water dripping on a stone, drop after drop, hour upon hour. Each drip is small, almost invisible. Yet over time, the stone grooves, reshaped by something as soft as water, simply because of consistency. Repeated thought works the same way. Even the minds most hardened by old patterns can be reshaped by the steady drip of a new conviction. Slowly, quietly, the surface of belief changes until the entire landscape of living follows suit. Lasting conviction comes only after repeated exposure. Not once, not twice, but daily. What you hear in the morning, what you read before bed, what you affirm in times of doubt, all of it strengthens inner conversation until no outside voice can take its place. The world can shout against your aim, but repetition has built an inner echo stronger than noise outside. That echo is conviction. So when you want true change, look not to the single inspiration, but to the practice of steady return. Keep the thought alive until it matures into belief. Let repetition shape conviction, and conviction shape action. Then life adjusts itself to the pattern held steady. So, how do you deal with the weeds of fear that appear even while you are tending powerful thoughts with conviction? What if the greatest limit on your life isn't outside you, but the quiet, fearful voice within? You know the one. It whispers when you step toward change. It raises doubt when you start to imagine new results. It interrupts ideas of freedom with a reminder of past mistakes. That voice, if unexamined, has more influence than circumstances ever could, because the world outside bends itself to the tone you keep inside. James Allen compared the mind to an armory where each thought forges either the tools of progress or the weapons of defeat. A single fearful thought may not seem damaging in the moment, but link it to others, and soon you are carrying a whole arsenal pointed at yourself. Fear arms itself through repetition. You replay the same doubtful story until it feels like reality, even though it has only ever been belief. The armory does not judge. It merely provides whatever you commission. Fear orders chains. Faith orders wings. Fear-based thinking shrinks the imagination. It narrows possibilities until life feels like a corridor with no open doorways. Where once there were wide horizons, now there appears only limitation. You can see this whenever you consider a new idea with excitement, only for fear to respond with questions. What if it fails? What if others judge? What if I prove unworthy? Immediately, the imagination, once free, becomes confined. It struggles to move because fear has withdrawn its permission to explore. Indecision feeds fear. When you hold a thought of change but keep circling hesitation, doubt hardens until it settles like concrete. Each moment of wavering adds weight. Eventually, doubt shapes your tone, your posture, even your appearance to others. Fear no longer hides inside. It projects outward, coloring the way you see people and the way they respond to you. What began as inner noise becomes a lived atmosphere. The fearful mind convinces the outer world to reflect the same doubt back again. One of the clearest mirrors lies in judgment. Notice how quickly you measure others when you feel unsure of yourself. Criticism of their flaws often matches the way you secretly criticize yourself. The inward condemnation creates outward hostility. It looks like you are noticing them, yet you are only replaying your own beliefs in disguise. Fear seeds suspicion, envy, or resentment. And life returns those fruits through interactions that confirm what you already assumed. When fear is unchecked, it always searches for evidence. And because thought attracts experience, it finds exactly what it searches for. Expect rejection, and you reinterpret neutral events as rejection. Expect difficulty, and you frame ordinary obstacles as proof of how hard life must be. In this way, fear rearranges reality to justify itself. It builds a case, gathers exhibits, and convinces you it has authority. But it was only acting from the instructions you gave it through repeated focus. The practice that loosens fear is very simple, though it requires steady choice. Nothing more than learning to hear the inner conversation, pause it, and redirect it. This means noticing when you say within yourself, "I cannot," or "this will not work," or "I am not enough." At the moment of notice, the practice is not to fight or argue. The practice is to let it go and replace it with a new statement aligned with your highest aim. Because when new truth is spoken often enough inside, the subconscious shifts its allegiance. Fear is not evidence you have failed. Fear is only a signal that thought has wandered away from purpose. It can serve you by pointing back to where your main focus belongs. Each time fear arises, it marks an invitation to return to your chosen direction. Instead of condemning yourself for feeling doubt, you can thank the signal and then replant the idea you actually wish to live by. In that light, fear loses its power. It becomes servant rather than master. Reframing fear in this way restores freedom. The energy once tied in worry becomes available for imagination again. The judgments that shrank horizons fall away. You regain authority to plant thoughts of abundance, of peace, of new power. Fear no longer defines the edges of possibility. It becomes an occasional reminder to guard the mental diet and to feed the mind only what aligns with vision. With fear addressed, the next challenge becomes clear. You need more than just freedom from weeds. You need a compass, a definite chief aim to direct how the garden of thought will grow. Without direction, even a fertile garden grows wild. The same is true for the mind. You can be planting thoughts every day, practicing imagination, even replacing fear with faith. Yet without a chosen aim, the results scatter. They look bright for a moment, but soon they lose coherence. The soil produces growth, but growth does not guarantee fruit. The real question is not whether your mind is fertile, but where it is pointed. And that is why you need a definite chief aim. A definite chief aim is more than a goal written in a notebook. It is a guiding vision that calibrates thought, choice, and energy. Without it, the subconscious mind cannot organize the impressions you give it. Instead of a unified harvest, the subconscious delivers mixed results. Some thoughts stretch toward success, others bend toward doubt, and the outcome feels like drift. Having no aim is like offering the soil a handful of mismatched seeds, grain and weed alike, and hoping it will somehow produce one clear crop. When you carry a definite chief aim, you carry a compass. Every choice, every reaction, every inner word reflects back to that single direction. Instead of scattering power across endless options, your mind channels its energy toward alignment. Think of all the decisions you face in the course of a single day. How to speak, what to prioritize, where to place attention. A definite aim becomes a filter. You can measure every thought and action against it. Does this move me closer to my aim or further away? With that clarity, even small steps take on new force. The beauty is that each aim does not need to last for your entire life. A man or woman may pursue one aim, achieve it, and discover in the process a deeper identity calling for the next. The aim continues to evolve because you continue to evolve. Each chapter of life reveals what is ready to blossom, and each aim pursued faithfully uncovers a more refined vision. In this way, progress becomes less about chasing endless desires and more about clarifying identity itself. You can see this principle in the way creators, entrepreneurs, or artists move through the world. They hold an inner picture so strong that it organizes their experience. The same opportunities may appear to many people, but the one guided by vision recognizes them instantly. Where others see only ordinary moments, the focused individual sees channels of growth, new partnerships, or creative sparks. The opportunities did not appear only for them. They were simply trained to notice, because every sense had been instructed by the aim. Anchoring to a clear vision also reduces fear and indecision. Without a chosen aim, decisions feel heavy because you do not know what to measure them against. Fear creeps in because the mind has no compass and every option feels risky. But once the aim is clear, hesitation reduces. The subconscious receives a signal that says, "This is where we are headed." Instead of endless debate, you feel natural pull towards steps that match the aim. Even obstacles lose their edge because the subconscious organizes creative solutions to preserve direction. In practice, this turns imagination into lived reality, step by step. A definite chief aim changes imagination from a flashlight, weak and scattered, into a laser beam. It concentrates thought. It narrows the field so the subconscious can bring correct circumstances, interactions, and decisions together like pieces of one puzzle. Things that once looked random begin to connect. People who once seemed unimportant surface with relevance. Life itself rearranges to answer the clear request you have given it. You do not need to know every detail of the path. This is often what keeps people from choosing an aim. They want the entire map before they begin. But the subconscious does not respond to complete blueprints. It responds to clear direction. You give it the aim, and it will supply the steps as needed. Each day, more is revealed, just enough to keep moving. The field of life hands you the tools at the exact moment they become useful. Never sooner, never later. The instruction then becomes simple. Hold the vision steadily. Speak it within yourself until it feels as though it is already true. Return to it morning and evening, like a gardener watering the seed. Do not demand that every event makes sense instantly. Do not uproot the aim to see if progress has been made beneath the soil. Trust that the subconscious carries the pattern you gave it and is working faithfully according to that pattern. The great difference is how you now live. Without clear direction, you live from struggle, drift, and reaction. With a definite chief aim, you live from imagination, purpose, and creation. You begin to see that every moment, whether challenge or joy, is practice in aligning with the vision you have chosen. Life stops being random and starts to look like training ground, each piece preparing the soil for the harvest you requested. Now, this alignment allows you to move not from constant strain, but from harmony with your own inner compass. And that harmony transforms every experience into part of the practice itself. What if every challenge you face was not punishment, but a lesson designed to refine your thinking? It changes everything when you see difficulty in this way. Obstacles stop being signals that life has gone wrong, and they begin to act as mirrors, pointing out the inner work still waiting to be done. A struggle that feels personal or unfair often reveals the very thought patterns holding you back. When reframed, the same struggle becomes a teacher instead of a torturer. Every moment is both a mirror and a school. The mirror shows you what your current state of thought is creating. The school offers the lesson you must learn to progress. If you notice jealousy, it points to a lack of self-acceptance. If you find yourself angry, it reflects some belief about control or vulnerability that still needs release. Nothing appears at random. Life places before you the exact curriculum that your own thoughts require, and the aim is always growth. Here is the tension. When struggles are misinterpreted, they reinforce fear. You see yourself as a victim, and the same lesson repeats until you are willing to face it differently. But when struggles are reinterpreted, they sharpen vision. A disagreement that once provoked bitterness now highlights an opportunity to practice calm speech. A setback that once demanded despair becomes a reminder of how strong conviction can birth creativity. The situation does not change, but the way you interpret it transforms it from stumbling block to stepping stone. External events carry less power than most of us assume. What matters is the inner state they expose. Two people can face the same circumstance, yet their experience is completely different. One interprets it as disaster, the other as challenge. The event itself has no voice. Your interpretation supplies the meaning. In that way, outer life reveals inner life. It does not dictate who you are, but reflects who you have been in thought. Judgments especially serve as an X-ray of the self. If you find yourself constantly irritated by others, look inward. Often the traits that provoke you most are the traits you deny or criticize in yourself. Angry thoughts toward your neighbor seldom have to do with them at all. They show you what parts of your own mind have not yet been resolved. The projection is the mirror. The irritation is the lesson plan. Emotions follow the same rule. They are not random weather patterns. They are feedback systems, pointing out where thought has wandered. When you feel envy, it points to a belief in lack. When you feel despair, it reveals doubt about your own capacity. Instead of condemning yourself for the emotion, you can let it guide you back to the place in thought that needs replanting. Life hands you emotions not as punishments, but as markers on the path. Even daily interactions become practice sessions. The conversation that frustrates you is not only about the other person. It is an opportunity to practice conscious creation, to choose patience, to reframe tone, to hold on to your chief aim even as the atmosphere pulls you toward reaction. Each moment is either reactive living, where your mood follows circumstance, or conscious creation, where circumstance is reshaped by your chosen state. The choice belongs to you in every exchange. By living in imagination first, life outside loses its power to trap you. Outer events stop looking like cages and start becoming canvases. A canvas does not dictate what must be painted. It only receives what brushstrokes you decide to apply. When you practice holding an image of yourself whole, abundant, and steady, the outer stage adjusts to uphold that script. What once looked restrictive becomes material for your vision. This is the hidden treasure. The diamonds lie in seeing life as training ground. Every test, every delay, every clash with another person is a spark designed to refine the gold of thought. You do not need to escape problems to find growth. You need only to reinterpret them as material for higher states of mind. Change the way you meet life's classroom, and you discover every problem is already a tool for progress. Transformation does not come by running from problems. It comes by letting each difficulty expose an old pattern in the subconscious and then reprogramming that pattern in harmony with your definite chief aim. If fear arises, it signals where faith must be planted. If anger arises, it reveals where calm must be cultivated. The curriculum will repeat until the lesson is learned, but each choice to reinterpret accelerates your movement forward. Having seen the garden inside, the question now falls to you. What seeds will you plant today? Will you continue to water old weeds, or will you cultivate new patterns that reflect who you know yourself to be? The garden responds either way, but the harvest depends on your choice. The truth is simple. Your life is not made by circumstance, but by the thoughts you choose to water. Every pattern in your outer world reflects the seeds you have allowed to grow within. When you accept this, external struggles lose control because your inner soil holds the real authority. Now, begin a mental diet. Guard your inner conversation. Return again to your definite aim and nourish it in imagination. Each choice to refocus is a step into alignment. Thought first, then form. Before you go, if this message supported you, consider becoming a channel member. Your membership helps us keep creating deep. And plant your seed of creation in the comments. Share the one idea that most modernized your thinking today, or the seed you're choosing to water this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.